It's Monday night, and we're sharpening our takes. You're tuned into The Cut, hosted by Thomas Robb.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another edition, the January 19th edition of The Cut. I'm Thomas Robb, produced by Anthony Aquendo, and joined by friend of the show, Nate Winchell. Nate, hello, and thanks for being here, brother.
Thomas, thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, it's awesome. We've got a heck of a game coming up tomorrow that I think we're both pretty excited for. We got some NFL games that happened yesterday, some that are happening today. We got some fun stuff to talk about with those, and the national title game for the college football finale. Want to thank you guys again for joining us here on this Sunday afternoon. It's a cold, frigid day in Northeast Ohio, but the takes are hot here. So we're going to get right into it, guys. We got a lot to talk about, and I want to thank the sponsor for our show this day. Little different sponsor for today, but we're going to go with our one of our other sponsors, Kippy's Cakes, bakery in Ashtabula County, ran by a young lady named Megan. Megan, she bakes cakes, she bakes cookies and cupcakes, cake pops, everything of the sort. If you need anything for an event coming up, whether it be a bridal shower, a wedding, a baby shower, a birthday, holidays, anything like that, go to Facebook and type in Kippy's Cakes. You'll find them there, and her phone number, everything's available there. In addition to being able to directly message her on Facebook, visit Kippy's Cakes on Facebook to get all of your buttercream needs. All right, so let's jump right into it. We got to watch two fantastic NFL games last evening. One featuring the face of the NFL in Patrick Mahomes going up against an upstart Texans team that has improved greatly over the last two seasons. And speaking of teams that have improved greatly, the second game, the night game, was played by the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions, both very upstart teams, very definition of upstart this year with Washington.
Yeah, it was a wild game.
It was an absolutely wild game.
I don't think there was any defense played.
No, and I don't think that there were very many punts either.
No.
I don't think Dan Campbell actually has a punter. I think he just has a guy that stands there with the punter designation.
That's the new age. It's fourth down be damned, and let's go.
Where did that come from? Where did that
analytics?
Analytics.
I hate analytics, but analytics everything's analytics driven.
Yeah.
You pick a sport, baseball, football. It's all analytics driven, and I get it. I get the reasoning. I coach with a coach around here in high school football, and that was our motto. It's pretty much fourth down, be damned, and we just wrote it out, and that's the new age of the NFL. That's the new logic, the new thinking. Whether you agree with it or not, that's the way it is, and it has its good points and it has its bad points.
Absolutely. There's really my introduction to analytics was the book Moneyball, and then it got turned into a film with Brad Pitt, right? Mm-hmm. But I kind of saw where they were coming from. Like, you lose a guy like Jason Giambi, which was the operating issue among other players like Jason Isringhausen, etc. But how do you replicate Jason Giambi without being able to afford Jason Giambi? Yeah. So what you can do, you take three guys and their stats, their WAR, their on-base percentage, home runs, batting average, all equal out to what Giambi did. Fantastic. But then they employ it in the NBA, they employ it in the NFL, and I think that in certain sports, analytics works better than others. NFL, going for it on fourth down all the time. Like, I watched the Cleveland Browns go for it on fourth down on their own 30. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's always the smartest play.
No, and I get it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to play the game. And something can be said for playing the game the right way. Because I guarantee you, coaches like Bear Bryant, Woody Hayes, never.
No, I mean, I've read so many things about how the special teams aspect of the NFL is dying. I heard that there's a thing where instead of onside kicks, it's been proposed instead of an onside kick, if you get your 2-point you have to do a 2-point conversion and get it, and then you can go back and instead of kicking off for an onside kick, it's a 4th and 20 type situation. You got to get the first down, and then you can continue your drive.
Even more reasons why the NFL is garbage.
It's become so different, man.
The rules, it's not even, the NFL that I grew up watching, it's not even close to the same thing at all. Everything is geared toward the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And, the crazy penalties, like, it's just insane to me. Like, a guy gets injured with under 2 minutes left in the game. There's a 10-second runoff.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is that?
No, absolutely.
Why are we interrupting the flow of the game? Why are we changing the game? Why? You've taken the integrity of the game and it's gone.
Well, it's interesting you say that because it's not only affecting the NFL, it's now the NFL and collegiate are completely different sports. You're not even playing the same game, it seems. Like in college, you still have a normal kickoff return, right? It's not like the NFL where you got to wait until it gets into the green zone essentially, and then you can return it, right? Only 1 foot needs to be in bounds in college as opposed to 2. And a lot of teams in college run these wild offenses. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember watching Oregon, right? And Oregon was really the pioneer of that spread option, with Chip Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a completely different game, right?
Because it was fast, go,
all
go,
the time.
Go. And now they've made rules where the substitution thing in college, I don't understand, but now they allow you to sub, which the whole point of going that fast and going no huddle was for that advantage. Well, you no longer have that advantage.
No.
And I guess in some ways I understand why, but it changes the game.
Absolutely.
If you stop, a team's on a roll and they're just rolling downfield, but because the team wants a sub, so you stop until they get their subs in. Well, now you just, you slow down the momentum. And the whole purpose of the no huddle and the go system. And again, right or wrong or indifferent, that's just the state of the game.
It is. And the other state of the game is I never thought we'd see an offense like Oregon's in the NFL. Like the vintage Chip Kelly Oregon, right?
Right.
Now you're seeing quite a few teams employ aspects of that, or Urban Meyer's Ohio State teams. A lot of these, like Florida State back in the day, Florida back in the day, like these sweeps that occur and like the motion going and not stopping, just basically a head start. You're seeing so much of this change, and a lot of the teams that are employing that have young quarterbacks, young mobile quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. So let's dive right into something like that. Last night, the Commanders played the Lions. Two very different teams. The Commanders, led by Jaden Daniels, the LSU phenom, comes into the Commanders, and the old guard, Jared Goff, for the Lions, but who also has dynamic young players on offense that he's playing with, right? Guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? I don't really put Sam Laporta in there because he's a vintage tight end. He's that big, burly sumbitch who's just going to get in that end zone, right? But that is not the score of the game, brother. That was in 2023. Hey, you know what, Anthony? That's Google's fault. That ain't your fault, my friend. There we go. So the Commanders end up beating the Lions 45-31 last night. And Jaden Daniels has a coming out party in the NFL playoffs, going 22 of 31 for 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he had some help.
He had a lot of help.
He had Mr. Brian Robinson Jr. getting in for 2 touchdowns last night. He had scary Terry McLaurin catching the football, getting a touchdown. And a man a lot of people forget, Austin Eckler.
Yeah, he had a good game.
Austin Eckler is... Do you remember, you remember Matt Forte?
Yes.
Running back out of Tulane, played for the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
That is the modern day Matt Forte. The guy can run the ball or he can catch the ball. He can block. He can be used as a decoy. He is a fantasy football darling for the San Diego, for the Los Angeles Chargers, and goes to Washington, knowing not only do they have Brian Robinson Jr., but they also have McNichols. They have a couple other guys in the backfield, and they have legit options in the receiving game, right? But Austin Eckler contributes on the ground. 6 carries, 47 yards, and 4 catches for 41 yards. So he had 10 touches for 89 yards last night. He's doing everything. Having a guy like that with a young quarterback, I think, is so important.
Well, not only that, but you have a young quarterback who is that threat to run.
Absolutely.
And if you watch the game and you looked at their offense, a lot of what they ran, probably I would good 70% RPO.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran a lot of triple option off that RPO.
They did.
And it's a college. It's crazy because, like you had mentioned earlier, it's a college style offense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cliff Kingsbury is their OC, but that's what works for them. And you stretch the field side to side. You make teams defend every inch of the field. So then you can turn around. You run the football. Brian Robinson had a great game last night.
Fantastic game.
They just kept inside zone, and just kept smashing them with it. And then they'd come in the lane. You bring 8 guys in the box. Well, then what happens? You go outside the hash marks
every time.
And that was a lot of their success. I mean, it, also didn't help that Detroit turned the ball over 5 times. You have 4 interceptions and a fumble by Goff, and that killed them because that took away how many chances did they have scored, and he threw an interception. At least 2 that I can think of.
They were driving down the field multiple times and in the red zone, and Goff turns it over. They had a clear touchdown catch to Jamison Williams, and Jared Goff didn't put it in the right spot.
In Goff's defense on that play, Jamison Williams got to get to the other hash. If you're going to run a post, you're going to run a post. You can't run a post to the middle of the field. You got to go from one hash to the other.
One hash to the other.
So you get that separation because he didn't have the separation because he cut the post off in the middle of the field. So it was a good throw. Just Jamison didn't get to the other hash where he would have had that separation. Therefore, you have a little miscommunication there. So therefore, you have an interception, turnover. But I mean, some of those throws that Goff had last night were awful.
Very bad. And it's like he wasn't excuse me, I don't think he was comfortable at all during the game. The Commanders were disrupting the Lions offensive line, which was battered a bit. I mean, the Lions offensive line has been beaten and battered all season.
They have 18 guys on injured reserve.
There's 18 now?
They have 18. Detroit has 18 guys on injured reserve.
No way.
Yes.
And that's with David Montgomery coming back.
Right. Well, yeah.
So a key player comes back, and everyone's excited about Montgomery coming back because now you get the Sonic and Knuckles backfield, Gibbs and Montgomery. But David Montgomery makes little to no impact in the game. He only touches the ball 6 times last night. Do you think that played at all into the offensive struggles of the Lions?
No. I think what played in the offense struggle of the Lions is that they couldn't block Washington.
That's a very fair point.
You can ask any quarterback. Worst thing that they have happen to them is constantly being moved off their spot, forced to move in the pocket, and
not establishing a clean pocket.
Yes, and Goff's not that kind of guy where he's gonna be able to move around enough to give himself time to throw. He's not a Jaden Daniels. He's not mobile enough to do that. He's got to be able to sit in the pocket at halftime and throw the football. When they did that, they were successful, but Washington, kept disrupting the pocket and kept moving him off a spot. And, the result of that is 4 interceptions.
Absolutely. And it's not like this is a new thing for Jared Goff. Jared Goff has been in the league, it seems like 20 years, but he really came in the league in 2016. So it's been about 9 years. He started at Cal. He started with the Golden Bears. He gets drafted to the Rams, who were St. Louis at the time, and gets traded to Detroit in the Matthew Stafford trade, right? Do you know who the Lions actually got in the Matthew Stafford trade? So it was
Goff, wasn't it?
Goff, but then picks. Those picks turned into multiple contributors on defense and Jahmyr Gibbs. So the Lions, in my opinion, won the trade because they get one of the most dynamic young rookie running backs in the league at the time, and then Gibbs continues to evolve, right? The defense comes together. But, like always, Jared Goff continues to come up short in big game situations. So last week when it was me doing the show, after every game that I talked about, I said, where does this team that lost go from here, right? So my question is to you, we have a guy who's a stone statue in the pocket with all these dynamic offensive weapons around him. Jameson Williams, one of the fastest men in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is Jarvis Landry on steroids. Because Landry caught everything that came to him, Amon-Ra does the same thing. A two-man backfield that is just absolutely dynamic and one of the best young tight ends in the NFL, right? Do the Lions need a reset at quarterback to succeed with the roster the way it's made up now?
No.
No.
I think they need to upgrade their offensive line.
Okay.
Get some guys back healthy. And I was wrong, by the way. Goff only threw 3 picks because Jameson threw the other one on a trick play.
Yeah. Okay.
But here's the thing about that game. Detroit never adjusted to what Washington was doing.
Okay.
There's ways to counter that pressure in the pocket. Never went to a quick game.
No, not once.
I mean, you can run draws. I mean, they had success running the football, but they never adjusted. There was you didn't see slants, hitches. You didn't see the quick game, and that's how you counter the pressure in the pocket is get the ball out of your hands.
Absolutely.
And they never adjusted to that. And and I'm nothing against Ben Johnson. I think he's a great play caller. I think
he's going to be a head coach.
Yes, soon.
Very soon.
But
today maybe.
More than likely.
Yeah.
So, therein lies the problem. You don't adjust to what they're doing. You just keep beating your head against the wall. And, therefore you had the 5 turnovers.
Absolutely.
And I think, they got a little bit cute sometimes. And in that situation, I don't think you needed to be cute. I think you just needed to adjust to what Washington was doing. And once you get them out of what they're doing, then you go back to, some of your plays that you run on a more regular basis. And I think sometimes offensive coordinators they outthink themselves.
Absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. We see Stefanski outthink himself every week in Cleveland. Unfortunately. But to Stefanski's credit, he's a good coach. He is a good offensive minded coach. It's just he doesn't have the personnel to do what he wants to do.
He doesn't have a quarterback. He wants to do what he wants to do.
I didn't want to say it.
I'm going to say it all day, every day. Until they get a quarterback to run. You look at the difference. Flacco was here last year. What did they do? They went immediately,
airing it out.
12 personnel, running the, play action, running everything that has been the bread and butter of, Stefanski's offense. And looked at the results. Well, Watson didn't want to do that. He wanted to, run out of the gun. Well, you don't have the receivers to run out of the gun for one.
No, you don't.
You don't have an offensive line. Offensive line this year start out. They were hurt.
Yeah.
You got to protect your offensive line, and you're not going to do that running 4 wide, 5 wide, running everything out of the gun. And people can say what all they want for these high octane offenses, everything out of the gun, but when you come back to it, the teams that are successful in the NFL run the football.
They 1,000% do. We're going to get to some teams that run the football here in a little bit. I'm very excited to talk to you about some of these upcoming games. But before we get to the upcoming games, we need to talk about the Texans and Chiefs game yesterday. 14-23, CJ Stroud comes up short yet again in a playoff game, crumples to Patrick Mahomes, who only threw for 177 yards. Now, here's something fun about that, Nate. Patrick Mahomes threw for 177 yards, right? 117 of those yards went to Travis Kelce.
Imagine that.
Travis Kelce looked absolutely atrocious all year, has a good game in the playoffs, in the divisional round, to get to the conference title, right? Now, hats off to Kelce. Kelce's he's a fantastic tight end. He's a little bit older now. He's dating one of the most famous women in the world. And by all accounts, he's living the dream. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Kelce's living the dream. Mahomes has not looked Mahomesian, as I call it, all season.
The
He's
Chiefs, the
very
Chiefs
pedestrian.
haven't looked good all season. I mean, they've escaped with some close wins, but this isn't the offense that everyone's seen the last 5-6 years, and they're beatable.
They're
I'm
very beatable.
saying they're beatable.
They're very beatable because they don't have a deep threat outside of Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice, who was supposed to be the number one receiver, gets hurt, tears his ACL because Mahomes falls into him second, third week of the year. And they hadn't looked right since. Mahomes operates best when he has that deep threat, fast kid that can get down the field and catch some footballs. And he doesn't have that right now.
But the one thing I think the Chiefs have done, they won, previously with their offense. Well, now their defense is almost up to par with their offense. I mean, I don't know what the Texans were doing leaving that tackle on an island all by himself against Chris Jones. I don't understand that. I mean, you got to chip him, you got to double him, you got to protect that tackle. And he was a young tackle. I believe he's only a rookie.
He's a rook.
And that's not a you're not going to be successful leaving a rookie tackle out on an island all by himself.
No, you're not. There's very few rookie tackles you can leave on an island all by themselves, talent-wise. And even Joe Thomas wasn't that as a rookie, right? Joe Thomas still had growing pains. I think the only tackle I've ever seen that came into the league very ready was Laramie Tunsil when he got drafted by Miami all those years ago.
Orlando Pace.
I stand corrected. Orlando Pace. Orlando Pace is one of one, though. Like, there's not many tackles that are on par with him in terms of career accolades, in terms of career accomplishment. He was ready day one. He really was. But my biggest thing about this Chiefs team right now, you know what they kind of remind me of? They remind me of how Ohio State was during the regular season, right? I was talking to a couple people about this, and I wonder if it applies to the Chiefs. Ohio State did just enough all year to not get hurt. They knew their average was good enough to win 10, 11 games, right? Then they turn it on in the playoffs. It's kind of like LeBron when he was in Cleveland and he was with the Cavs. They would coast through that regular season because having LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, that's good enough to get you 43 to 47 wins, right?
Yeah.
But then you become Batman, Robin, Superman, and fucking Green Lantern, the Justice League in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So I almost wonder, was that the Chiefs' strategy? Just get by through the year and then unleash Travis Kelce?
Well, let's think about this for a second. Who they play? They played the Texans.
They did.
And now Texans, again, their season was a lot like the Chiefs. It was a mixed bag. And you beat the Texans. Congratulations. Good job. Yeah. You survive, move on, advance. Well, guess who you're going to play next? You're going to play the Bills or you're going to play the Ravens. Yeah. Two totally different monsters.
Monsters of the game.
Two, defenses much better than the Texans. offense is much better than the Texans. And if you look at Baltimore and you look at Buffalo, similar styles. I mean, Lamar is just unreal. And for all the grief that I gave him when he first came in the league and all the smack I talked to my kid about
The
Lamar.
young man, Zachary.
Yes. Lamar, his stats this year
Yeah.
are just, it's insane.
It is.
And the crazy thing is Josh Allen isn't far behind him.
He's not.
And those two offenses present two totally different problems for teams.
They do.
You know, I think Bills have the better receivers. Josh Allen, unbelievable arm. Just gifted arm. I wanted the Browns to draft him so bad.
I did too.
But then you have Baltimore and Lamar. Lamar himself, ooh, he's a problem.
He's a Madden create a character.
Exactly.
It's exactly what he is. And Baltimore has a few of those Madden creative characters on their team.
Well, you look, and then remember what I had said earlier about teams and success and running the football. Well, you had to look no further than Baltimore. Henry is just a monster.
He's the king, man. He's the king.
And if he continues and they continue to block for him and they continue to run the ball like that, good luck.
It's over. It's game over. So where do the Texans go from here? What do they need?
Offensive line help.
Offensive line help.
They need to upgrade offensive line. I think they need to upgrade that defensive line. I mean, I think that there's a clear path for them. Hopefully, they don't blow that team up and get rid of the coach, because I think he's done a fantastic job.
D'Amico Ryans.
Yes, he's done a fantastic. He's great defensive football mind.
He is.
And I think they played a little above themselves. But I think they fix it through the draft. They're gonna have to. They're gonna have free agency draft. They're gonna have to upgrade their line. But I think the Texans are in a good path. They got to protect.
They do.
They got to protect Stroud, because what was the stat that I saw? Stroud was the second most quarterback sack this year.
Yeah,
and Caleb Williams was number one.
Yeah, Caleb and C.J. Stroud.
And not a fan of Caleb Williams, but I mean, the kid had no help.
No, I felt so bad for him that last game of the year when he's on his behind and he's just like looking gutted. And I'm never really a fan of that. Like when I'm watching a pro football game, like, cause I'm like, come on, dude, like you're a grown man, you're a quarterback. You can be pissed off, but get up, stop complaining and go. And I'm watching this game, this Bears game, right? And I'm seeing like this kid's actually trying. It's just that everyone else around him is so inept. That offensive line's horrible for Chicago. He can't do anything. He can't get the ball to DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, or Ruma Dunze. He can't do it because he has a second and a half to get it out, when most quarterbacks, I think I read it's like 2.3 seconds or something like that. It doesn't sound like very much, 1.5 to 2.3, but that 0.8 of a second is the difference between cocking and flicking the wrist really well or having to throw it floppy. Or
let's put this into perspective. So, an example, high school.
Yeah.
2.5 seconds to get rid of the ball.
Okay.
College goes down a little bit. You probably got more like 2.2 seconds, 2 seconds. NFL, think about it, probably under 2 seconds to get rid of the football.
Okay.
Under pressure. And it stands the test of time. If you're not good up front, it doesn't matter. You could have Superman as your quarterback, Batman and Robin as your running backs, you know, Captain America at wide receiver.
Yeah.
It isn't going to matter, because if you can't block up front, then it doesn't matter, because it gets blown up.
Absolutely.
And so, I think you can probably say that for about a lot of teams, that, it starts up front. Baltimore's very sound up front.
Very.
Buffalo's very sound up front.
Very.
Kansas City's very sound up front. I think Baltimore runs the ball better than the Chiefs or the Bills.
Absolutely.
Obviously, because of Henry. But I would caution, don't sleep on the Bills, because James Cook's pretty good running back. And, Josh Allen, to his credit, He's one of those guys. He moves in the pocket. He makes plays. I mean, I watched the game earlier this year where he rolled to his right, bought time, threw the ball all the way back across the field.
Yeah. To the other side of the field.
For a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's God-given talent. I mean, that's just our arm ability. And, in that game tonight, Lamar, again, as much as I dogged him when he came out, because he wasn't a good throwing quarterback when he came in the NFL. I think we could all agree on that.
We can.
I think, though, that he's adapted. I don't know that he has a strong arm as Josh Allen, but he gets the ball there in different ways.
Absolutely.
Throws it on the run, drops 3/4, drops sidearm. I see him submarine a ball. Yeah. I mean, so that makes up for a lot of deficiencies. But I think, again, what it comes down to is two things. You win championships with defense and running the football. And then everything after that, play action, everything else falls into line.
Absolutely.
You do those two things, then you get to your play action game. That's how you win. I mean, Chiefs are the biggest example of it. And use your tight ends. Think about what's in common with the Chiefs and Baltimore. Baltimore has two very good tight ends. Andrews is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
The Likely kid's an absolute stud.
Monster.
So, and I'm not sure who the Bills tight ends. I don't think they.
Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid.
Yes. And Knox, I knew, Knox is very good.
He's tight very end. Good.
So, again, you look at these teams. Chiefs got Kelsey. Baltimore's got those two. Bills got those two. So it goes back to, you look at these offenses, these are the ones that are playing for all the marbles.
Mm-hmm.
All these teams with all the gimmicks and the 4 wide, 5 wide, shotgun, where are they at? Oh, they're sitting at home watching.
Absolutely. And you can't understate, like, the Commanders, right? The Commanders have an old guard at tight end. They have Zach Ertz, not guard offensive line, but the old guard, that proverbial.
Yes.
Zach Ertz is at tight end, right? I mean,
he had a touchdown last night.
He what?
He had a touchdown last night.
He did.
Almost had 2 touchdowns last night.
I was gonna say the Texans, where they go from here, I think the Texans need to overhaul the offensive line in free agency. They already have the Ashtabula kid, Juice Scruggs, on the offensive line. They've got Laramie Tunsil at tackle still. I think you upgrade the offensive line with free agency, and in the draft you got Tyler Warren from Penn State and Colston Loveland from Michigan, 2 very highly rated tight ends. I think the Texans need to go after and get one of those kids.
I take Tyler Warren all day,
because Tyler Warren opens up so many options for you, because the kid can run, and the kid was a quarterback at one point.
He's sick. Was he 6'6"?
6'6", 250.
And I was never sold, not because I hate Michigan, but I was never sold on Colston Loveland. I mean, he's a good tight end, but he's not Tyler Warren.
He
doesn't have that athletic ability, and he does a lot of things. He did a lot of things for Penn State. Why Penn State didn't use him more, I guess we'll get to that when we get to that discussion. But, tight ends are hard to find. Good ones are hard to find, and you have one available, you got to take it.
You have to. Like, even if he doesn't produce his first year, you have to be patient with a tight end, like the Browns, right? I hate to go back to them, but David Njoku was not a good tight end his first year. He was okay, but David Njoku didn't become David Njoku until like 2 years before his contract was up.
Until Joe Flacco stepped on the scene. Then he made him a superstar. And
this year, Njoku was making the catches that you see Mark Andrews make, that you see Kelsey make, but Njoku's even more athletic. He made that one touchdown from Jameis Winston against Pittsburgh, where he caught it above here and fell back onto it, like almost his neck. I thought the guy broke his neck when he fell. He's a good tight end. You have to be patient with tight ends, but you can get that luxury because there's so many free agent tight ends that can be plug and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, back to the Brent. Jordan Akins, not good by any means, but he was a threat in the red zone because he's so large, right? You go back to some of the more elite teams of the past couple years. I mean, there were a lot of teams that came in and signed multiple tight ends to deals, like the Bengals this past year. Mike Gesicki, who, by all accounts, is a pretty decent tight end. I mean, he's a good receiving tight end. He really opened up the red zone for T. Higgins, for Jamar Chase, and for Chase Brown to really shine this year, right? So I think the Texans need to follow that model and find a tight end because Cade Stover's good, and he's always going to have a place in my heart because he is from Ohio State. But I don't think Cade Stover has the build to be a successful NFL tight end.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. So we're going to move on now to the the 2 games that we have on tap for today. Before we get in to anything like that, we do have a special segment that we've prepared. A friend of the show, Joe Streets, decided yesterday with me. I had asked him to put a parlay together for me. Sports betting is legal in Ohio. Gamble responsibly. Don't gamble more than you can afford to lose. But Anthony, I think in the drive I have a video file. If you can pull that up for us. So I want to thank Joe for taking the time yesterday to put this together. But you guys will see it on the screen here shortly. Joe had put together, I believe it's an 8-legger. So it's 4 legs for the Rams-Eagles game and 4 legs for the Ravens-Bills game, I believe. So we'll have that up on the screen here shortly, and you'll be able to see if you're going to pick it or if you're going to pop it for the parlay of the day. Anthony's going to be pulling it up here. So while Anthony gets to that, Nate, we got the Chiefs and we've got the Commanders in their respective the NFC conference game and the AFC conference game. I think going into the year, a lot of people anticipated the Chiefs making it because they're the Chiefs, right? This is all cyclical. You have certain quarterbacks that you always expect to be in these games. Going back 15 years, let's say 2009, right? You expected Ben Roethlisberger, you expected Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, those kind of guys, right? Yeah. You never really saw rookie quarterbacks get to these games, right? I can't really think of any.
Dan Marino.
Dan Marino did get there. That's the 80s. That's more the 80s. But I mean,
if you want to go back, rookie quarterbacks.
That's true. That's 100% true. Rookie quarterbacks, Dan made it. But I can't think of any other rookie quarterback that ever made it outside of Marino.
Let's see, Bernie was in his second year.
Roethlisberger was in his second year, I believe. Burrow, second year. But rookie quarterbacks generally don't make it as the starter, right? Why do you think we've seen such an infusion of young players making it so early in their careers?
Scheme.
You
look at, I said it earlier, look at Washington's offense coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, he's
a college coach
who suited his scheme and his game plan to the personnel that he has, and they've been wildly successful.
We've got our parlay up here. Huh?
Tom, that looks like crap, just by the way. It's not going to show up good on there. I'll do the best I can with it, but yeah, it did the way you have it formatted here as a video too. It doesn't turn out well. Okay. Well, for the future, I'll change it up because I think the parlays are going to be fun to put up here. We'll figure out a way to get that going. But if you guys can see all that, I'm going to pull it up on my phone so I can read it to you real quick. Let's rock and roll here. So Joe has the Buffalo Bills money line, Josh Allen anytime touchdown scorer, Derrick Henry anytime touchdown scorer, Mac Hollins over 15.5 receiving yards, Mark Andrews 3+ receptions, Rams alternate spread of 10 plus 10.5. And then Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown scorer, and Kyron Williams, anytime touchdown scorer.
So that's a plus 6,013 odds. So you put $10 down, you're making a little bit of cash on that. But remember, gamble responsibly. Gamble responsibly. Would you pick that or would you pop that?
I'd pop that. There's
You
a
pop
couple
it?
things in there that I don't
Okay.
like, but
Okay.
yeah, I'd pop that. There's a couple things there that are obvious,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's a couple things in there that, you no.
I don't see the Rams plus 10.5. I don't see the Rams plus 10.5.
And I don't Bills money line either. I don't.
Bills. All right. Yeah, because we're going to get into this real quick here. Anthony prepared, and just a shout out to Anthony as our producer for really coming through clutch with graphics. Anthony's about to debut some stuff that we've never seen here on the cut before that I'm really excited about. So we're going to get into right now the prediction for the Rams-Eagles game. Okay? So before we get into what we're predicting is going to happen during the game, we have some score predictions. So, Nate, what's your prediction for the Eagles-Rams score?
Oh, what did I say it was? I told you earlier. Oh, yeah. 24-21.
Okay. So you're at about 24-21. We're very close. I've got
24-21 who?
Eagles. And I've got Eagles 28, Rams 14.
Ooh.
So both of these games that we have here are separated. Yours is separated as a 1-score game. Mine's separated as a 2-score game. So why don't you get into why you're saying the Eagles are going to win this game?
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley.
I just think that offensively, Philadelphia just runs the ball, play action, and the Rams have been good defensively, but they're playing in Philly, and I like that advantage of them playing in Philly. And I just think offensively, I just think that they do what they have to do to win. Defense makes some stops, and there you go.
Absolutely. The Eagles, you touched on it with their offensive line. Their offensive line is massive. Massive guys on that offensive line. They lose Jason Kelsey in the offseason. They don't miss a beat, right? And as a result of not missing a beat on the offensive line, they're able to go out and sign Saquon Barkley from their division rival, the Giants, and they're really able to parlay that into a very complementary backfield with Hurts and Barkley. And the run game being so elite and the offensive line being massive, the Rams' offensive line, after Aaron Donald retired, is very undersized. They're a very undersized defensive line. And Jared Verse, their first-round pick, he is an absolute force. He's a force rushing the quarterback. He's a force in the run game. But he's small. I can't say he's small because he's an NFL defensive end. But he's not going to win as often as he does against an offensive line like the Eagles. And you also have now a very traditional quarterback in Matthew Stafford playing against a very dynamic player in Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts is a Diet Coke Lamar Jackson. He never has developed his throwing ability, in my opinion. It's remained stagnant, but he's developed a pocket awareness.
See, I think the Eagles, and the other thing is, Eagles can run the ball. I think they're at their best when Hurts doesn't have to throw the ball 30, 40 times. He throws the ball 20, 25 times. That's kind of where they want to be. They got some nice receivers there.
They do.
In Philly. I wish him and A.J. Brown would get it together.
Absolutely.
But I just think overall, and the Rams have come a long way since the start of the season.
They have.
I don't think we can disagree on that at all.
No.
From where they started to where they are, congrats, because
The beginning of the season looked rough.
it was a rough start. I think the Rams are a year away.
Okay.
Shoring up a couple things. I like Philly. It's at Philly. I like the way they've played. They've been consistent all year long. They've run the football.
Absolutely.
And again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Play defense, you run the ball.
Good things are going to happen.
Good things are going to happen.
Absolutely. And it's a tale of two running backs in this game because you have the best running back in the league, Saquon Barkley, versus a young upstart kid in Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams he's been in the league about 3 years now, I believe, but he never was really utilized his first year because they had Cam Akers, right? So you're going to be able to get more miles out of a guy like Kyron Williams because his rookie year, he wasn't asked to carry the load on offense, right? But now he's being asked to carry that load. And I think someone like Kyron Williams is tailor-made for the drop-back quarterback in Matthew Stafford, whereas Saquon Barkley, with how dynamic he is coming out of the backfield, is better suited for a mobile quarterback, if that makes any sense to you. You have the best runner in the NFL. You have one of the best young running backs in the NFL. You have two receiving cores that couldn't be more different. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are speedsters. They are speed. Devontae Smith killed Ohio State in the national title game a few years ago with his speed, and he has not slowed down. He looks much quicker than everyone else out there on the field. And then you look at the Rams. You have an older guy, Cooper Kupp, who, for all intents and purposes, is one of the best possession receivers in the league. And then you have the kid from BYU that came out of nowhere in Puka Nacua, who, I mean, he's dynamic. And then you've got guys like Tutu Atwell, who's a little tiny guy. He's a deep threat. He doesn't connect all the time, but he's still good. And then you have Demarcus Robinson, a big guy, possession, red zone threat. My biggest worry with the Rams is they don't have a tight end safety valve. And neither do the Eagles really. They have Dallas Goedert, but they criminally underuse him. He is criminally underused in a scheme like that. So do you think we both agree on the Eagles, and the Eagles are going to play the Commanders in the conference title game? What is your prediction for that game? Who wins that game?
Ooh. Well, Washington plays like they played last night. I think Washington all day.
You think Washington all day?
Yeah, because that was just dynamic, what they did last night. It was a whole lot of offense and a whole lot to defend. I think it'll be close, but I think, if they play the way they're capable of playing, I think Washington wins that one in a close one.
And it's an NFC East battle. The Commanders and the Eagles are both in the NFC East. So does this cement the NFC? If the Eagles get there and they're against the Commanders, does this solidify the NFC East as the best division in the NFC? Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, Cowboys and Giants both suck, but that's nothing new. They've sucked for years.
But the thing is that the Cowboys could be in a good position to improve very quickly, especially if they get a coach like Ben Johnson.
It'll be interesting.
It'd be very interesting because because we can talk about Justin Jefferson all day. Justin Jefferson's electric. But in my mind, CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the NFL. In my opinion, CeeDee Lamb has succeeded in spite of poor quarterback play. Imagine if Dak were in a scheme that played to his strengths, it'd be over.
I would have to say Jamar Chase.
Okay. Jamar Chase is good. Jamar Chase is good. He's very good. He had 1,700 yards this year. I mean, I can't really.
I
discount that.
I understand your point. I
Yeah.
mean, is what he's had to work with. Yes, and it is different because Jamar Chase has Burrows.
And he played with Burrow in college, so there's that connection there. You know, like if I'm ranking the best receivers in the NFL, I'm saying CeeDee's number 1. I would say Jefferson 2, and then Jamar 3. And the reason I say Justin Jefferson at number 2 is because Justin Jefferson had Kirk, and Kirk and him they were like Eddie Brock and Venom, man. They were like a symbiote of each other. They were so in sync. And then Darnold comes because J.J. McCarthy is supposed to be the quarterback this year. He hurts himself. And Darnold, who is a career journeyman, comes in and does what he does and gets Justin Jefferson almost to the same level as what he had been. I mean, it was pretty nasty to see. Jamar Chase has improved every single year. But I also think that Jamar Chase benefits a lot from T. Higgins. I think he benefits a lot from T. Higgins. Because isn't Higgins like 6'4" or something like that?
He's another big wide receiver.
So it takes a lot of pressure off of Jamar because they're going to be doubling T quite a bit too. Especially like if you get to like that 30 your own or the opponent's 30, you know what I mean? That's almost red zone. You're going to be high pointing it into the end zone. Jamar's going to be open. He's going to get open. But the best receivers and stuff, that's a discussion for another day. I got on that. I don't know how I did, but we got the Ravens and Bills for the late game today, dude, and I know you're itching to talk about it. So give me your prediction for the Ravens and Bills.
Ravens and Bills, 38-28 Ravens.
So you've got Ravens winning 38, the Bills 28. Okay. That's interesting. Because I have the Bills 42 and the Ravens 33. So get into it for me.
Well, like I said earlier, and I'll say again, defense, running game, and then you got Lamar.
Absolutely.
And
Tom, what was your score?
My score, 42-33 Bills, baby.
And I just think that over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think the Ravens are playing the best football in the NFL outside of maybe the Commanders.
Okay.
And I just think too much Lamar. I mean, you got the running game, you got Lamar, you got those 2 tight ends. I mean, yeah, they throw the ball. Bateman's come on the last couple of weeks for Baltimore. But you
Zay
go back.
Flowers is hurt, though.
Didn't make a difference. Ain't gonna make a difference.
You don't think so?
No. Make a difference last week. Ain't gonna make a difference this week.
Okay.
But again, you go back to it. Defense. And Baltimore's defense over the second half of the season probably been one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Absolutely. Historically.
They made some personnel changes. They made some scheme changes. And so now you take that defense and you pair it with that offense they have. I mean, run the football, throw it to your tight ends. Lamar does what Lamar does, and there you have it.
There you have it.
And I think that they're going here forward today to, possibly next week. Baltimore's going to be a tough out.
They will. They're going to be a very tough out.
There's nothing that's happened over the last probably 6 weeks that would tell me otherwise.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I really do. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they're very similar quarterbacks. In the way of they're both mobile. They're both very cerebral. My biggest thing with Lamar Jackson is that Lamar has improved so much as a passer, right? He's a dynamic throw. I mean, he's dynamic. Adding that deep ball and that zip to his arsenal has made him a true weapon. But I think Josh Allen being able to come in the way that he did, overhaul his throwing mechanics before his rookie year, and actually become an effective strong arm quarterback that runs when he needs to, not because he can, is going to really parlay into a Bills win. Josh Allen, no one does more with less than Allen does. Okay? Josh Allen, they went and got Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns, who did not want to be with the Browns anymore. It's great. Amari Cooper is very undervalued this year. He only had like 250 receiving yards on the year, I think. But having that threat of Amari Cooper out there, he could go off at any time. But Josh Allen was able to turn Mac Hollins into a viable threat at any given time this season. Mac Hollins was someone I signed in my Madden dynasties because I needed a sixth receiver. You know what I mean? Like, but now I know who Mac Hollins is. He's a fucking weirdo, but he's good. And the running backs, both teams have such different backfields. You got King Henry for the Ravens, who was a downfield bruiser. The kid should be an outside linebacker. And then you've got Justice Hill, who's like the Diet Coke Austin Eckler. He's going to run for 38 yards, and he's going to catch for 40, right? Mm-hmm. Very dynamic. But who do the Bills have? They got James Cook, who I didn't even know was Dalvin's younger brother until like midway through the year. Ty Montgomery and Ray Davis. All different running backs that they deploy so effectively and can create mismatches on that field, right? And then no one even talks about him because he hasn't made an impact at all, but Frank Gore Jr., a bruiser, just like his daddy, a bruiser. And then Khalil Shakir on the outside, who, let's not forget, was amazing at Boise State. I mean, probably the best receiver to ever come out of Boise State. And they lose Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs this past year. Stephon gets traded to the Texans and immediately goes on injured reserve, which was nuts. And then Gabe Davis bolts for the Jaguars, right? Josh Allen doesn't miss a beat. And I think you said losing Zay Flowers isn't going to be that big of a deal for the Ravens, but I think it is. Because Rashad Bateman, he has come on a lot these playoffs, but prior to the playoffs, he was either a boom or he was a bust. And I'm worried that someone like Rashad Bateman, if he doesn't show up, it's going to be a hard time for Lamar to really be able to succeed.
I have two names for you.
Give me the names.
Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely.
You're right.
And I think that in this game, you're going to see a lot of running and you're going to see a lot of tight ends. And yeah, I think Bateman, he previously has his struggles. I think he'll show up, but I don't think they're not as dependent on their wide receivers as the Bills are.
Okay.
Because
that's fair.
If
That's
Baltimore is just able to run the ball, they'll just play keep away. They'll just pound the rock. Let Lamar do what he has to do, get it to their tight ends, and that's a tough ask. That's a tough ask to stop.
Very tough ask to stop. It is. So I've got the Bills. You've got the Ravens. You're going to be seeing them either one of them go against the Chiefs. Do you think the Ravens, if they make the conference title game, beat the Chiefs?
I think if either one makes the conference title game, they beat the Chiefs.
So the winner, I think we agree, the winner of this game makes the Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely.
Winner of this game makes the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I am in complete agreement with you. Complete agreement. Where do you go from here? Like I ask every loss, if in my opinion, if the Ravens lose, they need to go out this offseason and find a true number one receiver.
That was going to be the next words out of my mouth.
For the Bills?
No,
For the Ravens?
Absolutely.
Because it's the same for the Bills for me.
But that's always been that way for the Ravens, though. They really haven't. When was the last time they had a true number one wide receiver?
The last time they had a true number one receiver, they had two of them. They had Steve Smith Sr., but he was on the tail end of his career.
I was saying he was on the downside.
He was on the downside, but he was that wide receiver when he was getting 1,000 yards. Or Derek Mason. Big throwback.
Ooh,
it's been a long time.
That's a way back machine. And I honestly think, for as good as the Ravens are, that has been their one deficiency through the years, is they don't have that true number one wide receiver. I mean, Zay Flowers, okay, he drops too many balls. Kind of small slot guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you put a couple receivers in that offense, inject that with what they have with those two tight ends, and you know what they have with their running game. Ooh.
I could see a guy like Garrett Wilson, who wants out of New York, going to the Ravens.
That'd be a good fit.
Garrett Wilson on the Ravens would be.
Well, I think Garrett Wilson to any team would be better than what he's dealing with in the Jets.
If say Garrett Wilson leaves the Jets, I see realistically, Wilson could go to the Ravens, the Bills, or the Chargers, and those are his best fits because he can become the true number one. When Davante Adams got to the Jets, Garrett Wilson became an afterthought. In no world should a second-year player who is as dynamic as that kid is and makes the catches that kid makes, should he ever be an afterthought in an offense. Because Rodgers wanted to force feed Davante when Davante got there, because that's his boy. That's his boy. And you know what? They're buddies. I'm glad that they reunited because it looked like Aaron Rodgers wasn't as upset all the time in New York. And for everything Aaron Rodgers is, I think, and you're going to roast me, but I am of the prevailing opinion that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback of all time. In NFL history, he is the greatest. He is the greatest quarterback to ever play football. He is the most accurate. He has the best deep ball. And he won so many games and threw so many touchdowns in spite of the Packers never giving him anything on offense outside of Davante Adams. Jordy Nelson, great. Donald Driver, okay. But Donald Driver was a product of Brett Favre, right? Randall Cobb, great. But Davante Adams was the only elite player that ever got to play with Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes has had guys like Tyreek Hill. He's had guys like Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt. He's had elite players that have played with him. I mean, I even argue like Ben Roethlisberger had elite players with him. Le'Veon, Hines Ward for a time was elite. And then Antonio Brown before the CTE, even post CTE, was elite. Tom Brady had Randy Moss. Never won a title with him.
No,
but
that was the end of it, and it was the downside of Moss's career.
See, that's the thing that's always blown my mind too. Is Tom Brady is a great quarterback, but he couldn't win the big one with one of the top 3 receivers to ever play the game.
He's got 7 rings.
He does. He has the best tight end to ever play football.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Rob Gronkowski, I think, is the greatest tight end to ever play football.
Ooh.
The dude is a walking hangover, but the dude loves to play football. Did you ever see that thing that he said, like, yeah, I would go out and party and I would key into the facility and fall asleep with an IV and so I could show up at practice. What's the coverage, Gronk? Billy, just throw me the fucking ball. Like, I loved that. The guy was so funny. But We're done with NFL. We're moving on to the big topic of the day that Nate and I are so excited to talk about, brother. You and I at a golf outing talked about how Ohio State was going to win the title this year. And it was before the season started. It was before anything. You and I were so jazzed about Ohio State. And all year, all season, I think it was like a tradition that you and I would text each other randomly during games. We'd send each other like random stats, and it really made this season really special for me. So I really want to thank you, because the interaction that you and I had this year with everything, like, I got buddies that like Ohio State football, but I've never had a buddy who loves Ohio State football as much as you do. And I could actually talk deep stats and deep analysis with, on the outside of, oh yeah, man, they fucking dominated. You know what I mean? But like, you and I text, oh, they dominated. Oh man, did you see how they defended the outside zone? That's so elite. You know what I mean? None of my other buddies, and credit to my buddies, like, I love talking football with them. But I've never been able to go into a deep dive with people like I have with you this year. And it made it such a special year for me. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, you're welcome. And we're going to go into even deeper dive here shortly.
And it's like we're in each other's minds, because that's the verbatim what I was just going to say. We're going to go into an even deeper dive. Nate, kick us off here. We're not going to give you guys our score predictions yet. I think over the course of the discussion that Nate and I are going to have, you're going to see who we think's going to win. But
okay, so may I? Yes. Okay.
Do it, baby.
So we're going to start off with this. And I told Tom this, and I've told this several people. As much as we hate Ohio State losing to the scum up north, that was probably the best thing that could have happened to Ohio State.
Best thing.
And Tom and I were just having a discussion earlier, because it flipped this switch. Not only for this team, but it flipped the switch for Ryan Day. And people want to say whatever they want. And we had this discussion last time I was on about Ryan Day, and is he getting fired? And he's not getting fired. I told everybody that
You did.
last time. He's not getting fired. The results of what happened with Michigan is that Ryan Day evolved to the next level. And everyone's, well, he hasn't done this. He hasn't done it. He's been a head coach for 7 years now?
7 now.
7. Ryan Day, I'm going to put this into perspective. Let me see about it. So everyone wants to complain about his record against top 5, top 25, top 10. Ryan Day is 6-6 against the top 5.
Okay.
So he's at 500.
He's at 500 against the top 5.
Top 10, he's 13-8. Jim Tressel was 10-8 versus top 10.
And that's career.
That's career. Now, the only one better than Ryan Day at Ohio State was obviously Urban. Urban was, I believe, I saw 13-4.
13-4.
This year against the top 25, Ryan Day at Ohio State's 5-1. They lost to Oregon
insane.
On just a terrible ending to a game. So all the notions that Ryan can't win the big one in Ohio State, bye, see ya, gone, out the door. And why I say that is because Tennessee came in here, and Tennessee was okay SEC team.
Yeah.
They're not the Georgias or, well, the Alabama previous years, but SEC team. Mm-hmm. And all the pundits, everyone said, oh, Tennessee's going to beat. No. Ohio State whooped their ass.
Whooped them. 48-21?
Is something like that. It was a lot to a little.
A lot to a little.
But you could tell right off the bat that something was different.
Good. We texted about that.
21 points in the first quarter. And they went off. And I said, wow. I was thinking to myself, where's this been all year? Mm-hmm. And I go back to the Michigan game. It took for what happened against Michigan for them to get to where they are now. I think Ryan Day said, hell with it. We're going to play aggressive and physical, and we're going to get after it. every single play, whether it's offense and defense. And that whole mindset changed. And once that changed, now you've got, the beast and the wrecking ball that is Ohio State currently. So then you move on to the next game against Oregon. They just took Oregon to the woodshed.
They did.
And well, sitting there watching that, I was just like, wow. Like, I thought the Tennessee game was special. Whew. But Ohio State, they can beat you in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is unreal. Number one defense in the country. And we'll dive into that.
Yeah, we will.
A little bit later. But then you go to the Texas game. Now, and I believe I told you, and I've told others, that wasn't going to be like the first two games. Texas, because one thing people have to understand is when it comes to Ohio State, when they play people, does talent equate? Tennessee, no, the talent didn't equate. Oregon, no, the talent didn't equate. Oregon's good. Don't get me wrong. They weren't beating Ohio State.
They weren't beating
not
him
on
the
a
second
neutral
time.
site, not at Rose Bowl, and not the second time. Texas, both teams got dudes. And I
do.
think that showed up in the game. I watched the game. I probably watched that game 3 or 4 times. Kelly kept asking me why I kept on watching. Because what I do.
Shout out to Kelly for probably sitting there watching it with you 3 or 4 times
She
too.
just shake her head and walk away. But that game was a fist fight.
It was.
And that was where, you knew it was going to be like that. Because Texas defense pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a good secondary. They had the Thorpe Award winner.
They did.
And
they also had the freshman of the year, Colin Simmons.
Yes, who did absolutely nothing in that game, by the way. And we'll get into that too. That's a whole nother subject. But think about it this way. Ohio State had 9 penalties.
Mm-hmm.
Shot themselves in the foot how many times? Drives, stalled drives, whatever. They had 9 penalties for like 75 yards.
75 yards.
The biggest play of that game was the last play of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
The screen pass to Henderson.
Trevion Henderson to the house.
75 yards.
75 yards.
Because I believe that play changed the whole game.
I'm not gonna disagree.
Because Texas had all the momentum. The place was loud, crazy, and it was just, I mean, when they panned to the crowd, you could see just the disgust and the utter shock on all the Texas fans.
It was in Texas's backyard. It was in Jerry's world, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So that game, then it turned into just to a defensive battle.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State gave up 2 plays to running backs for touchdowns, which both, I believe, were blown coverages. But other than that, and then their last drive down the field, and we'll get into that in a second. But Ohio State proved they could win. They can win when the game gets muddy.
Mm-hmm.
They can win a dogfight. They can win a fist fight, because that's what it was. It was just a brawl, and who was going to make the last play? And that last drive out to State to score and take the lead, that was impressive.
It was.
I mean, Will Howard made that throw to Carnell Tate, and off his back foot, by the way, going away from him to the boundary. Heck of a play. Kept the drive alive. Then the fourth and 2 call. By the way, the play before that, when G. Scott stayed on his feet
And then extended forward.
it went from a 4th and 6, 4th and 5 to a 4th and 2. Ohio State came out in spread formation. 4 wide receivers had the field. Texas calls timeout. Ohio State comes back, and someone on the broadcast said, "Well, Ohio State hasn't, run anything with Will Howard all day." I'm like, "Oh, here it comes."
Here it comes, baby.
And they ran quarterback power. Tackle comes back inside, takes out the guard, takes out the nose tackle. Gone.
It was unfortunate on that play because when Howard did that, when he ran, I said, he's gone. He's gone. And then it's like I had a flashback to when I was watching football, NFL, when Daniel Jones took off that one day and then he just tripped over his feet and fell. It was like he thought he was in the end zone before he was there. That's what happened to Will Howard. And it stunk. But if Howard would have just kept square, kept up, he's gone.
Probably, but again, and I'll say this, that probably wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. Because then they took more time off the clock.
Absolutely.
And then the ensuing drive, Texas drives all the way down, get help of a couple of pass interference calls. The first one, yeah. Second one, now that's debatable. But the next sequence of plays after that just goes to show you how good Ohio State's defense was. 1st and 1 on the goal, stopped, like stone cold, just stopped.
Stuffed it.
Now, and I said this to you earlier, Sark's probably one of the best play callers in college football. Calls a toss sweep. Done. That play was over before it even got going.
Latham Ransom just did a grown man thing.
Well, Caleb Downs blew it up.
Yeah.
He did what he was taught, shot in off the hip with a puller. Forced Wisner to go wide, and the guy's too fast. Done. Done deal. And then, 3rd down, Jack Sawyer tips the ball. Then obviously we know what happened on 4th down, the scoop and score.
83 yards through, again, the heart of Texas.
But through all this, watching the 3 games in the playoffs, just the change in the whole attitude and the change in the way they play and how they approach things. It's all business. It's been all business since the Tennessee game. And I got some stats here we're going to dive into shortly, but this run has been nothing short of a game changer for the program, for Ryan Day, philosophy-wise. I think mentally-wise, probably the best things that could have happened. And, now they got Notre Dame.
They're on to Notre Dame.
And, and I talked about how talent equates. Notre Dame's got good players.
They've got great players.
And, they've got some good defensive players. Riley Leonard is great running quarterback. 16 rushing touchdowns, 18 passing touchdowns, I believe.
Yep, and he had 866 rush yards on the year.
And we'll get into the keys of the game later, but is Notre Dame beatable? Absolutely.
They're 100% beatable.
I mean, if you look at Notre Dame's road to the playoffs, okay. You look at Notre Dame's road to the playoffs. They played Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana's
Indiana.
I mean, they weren't going to beat Notre Dame. Not sure that Indiana should have even been in the playoffs, but that's a story for another time. Georgia. The thing about Georgia struggled all year.
They did, and they struggled even more when Carson Beck got hurt.
Outside of their win at Texas, which I watched as a buddy's house in Florida, we watched that. It was an impressive win, but that's probably the best game they played all year.
Sure.
I mean they almost lost to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And that was a good win for them. And Penn State, well, James Franklin did James Franklin things. I mean, Zach and I had a debate about this. Why would you throw the ball in that situation? You got 40 seconds. Get into overtime. That's fine. Throw a screen, throw something safe. See if you get some yards. Otherwise, take it to overtime. And inexplicably terrible decision by Aller. I don't know where he was throwing it to, but game over. And it was sitting on the couch, and I watched that, and I looked at my wife, and hey, game's over.
Yeah, it was crazy. That Christian Gray's interception, that was insane to end the game. And then Mitch Jeter, who was 65% on the year on field goals. Not a kid I would trust to kick a field goal. He comes up with the biggest field goal of his life.
But the story behind that, though, he was hurt all year. Was
Jeter hurt all year?
Yeah, to start the year, I want to say he had something with the hip. I don't know if it was dislocated hip or he did something to his hip or whatever. So he played, he played hurt most of the year.
Okay, so that's fair. That's fair.
That's fair enough. But it's amazing. It's amazing the run that they've had, and no one will ever have this run again. I mean, you think they're already talking about the way the playoffs are going to be seeded next year and how that's all going to do. No one will ever have the run that Ohio State's had this year in the playoffs. They beat Tennessee. They were the number 9 seed. Beat number 1 seed Oregon, number 1 team in the country. Didn't beat them.
Demolished them.
Demolished them.
Dismantled.
And They beat Texas, and they didn't play well against Texas, and they still beat Texas by 2 scores. So now we get to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's talented, and you got to give Marcus Freeman all the credit in the world,
One of
because
my favorite Buckeyes.
he's turned that program. He's turned that program around, and they are where they are. I think largely in part because of Marcus Freeman and the way he approaches things, and they're tough. They're a tough-minded football team. They're gritty. They play, some tough defense. They got some injuries they got to deal with. They lost one of their best defensive linemen. They lost their starting left tackle. And I believe they're starting, a freshman this week?
They're starting a freshman this week, and they've lost 2 other guys on the offensive line. Their center and I believe the right guard.
Yeah. So they're a little hurting up front, which going against Ohio State front, good luck.
Absolutely. You have JTT, you have Tyleek Williams, Captain Jack, and then there's the other defensive tackle. I don't remember. McDonald, yes. So you have big-bodied guys plugging up the middle in Tyleek Williams and McDonald, and you've got JTT, who JTT was very lauded coming into Ohio State from Polynesia Tech or wherever it was in Hawaii, I think, or California. He had some problems, and then he got in to the program mid-year his freshman year, didn't play a lot, but really came on his sophomore year and junior year. And then this year he dealt with an injury, I believe, and wasn't as effective. But I have been disappointed with him most of the year, and then in Texas he comes out, makes a couple pretty decent stuffs, and reads the offensive line well, and does what he needs to do to disrupt the play. Hurts his ankle. They taped it up. He's on the sideline, and he's just trying to be explosive on the sideline. He's doing anything he can to get back in that game, right?
And he did. And he made a big stop.
Made a big stop. And the thing is, my whole opinion on JTT changed at that point, because I said, now these kids aren't treating it like a game. These kids are treating it like a business trip. Like you said, this is business now. That kid was going to do anything he could to get back on that field. And the most telling thing, Nate, I'm going to tell you this right now. I hate seeing people get injured. I hate it. Hate it. Especially the college kids who did not opt out and they are playing the game. Matthew Golden, the wide receiver, rolls his ankle in, I believe, the first quarter. Mm-hmm. That takes Texas out of it a little bit for Ohio State. But the thing is, Golden is just on the sideline standing there like a sad puppy. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the biggest things program-wise.
Culture.
Ohio State says, oh, I'm hurt. I need to get back out there, man. Let's keep warm. Let's get loose. Let's stretch me out. Take me up. I don't care. Get me out there. Mm-hmm. Matthew Golden standing there like, dang, man. Dang. I hope I can get back in. And Isaiah Bond actually didn't do bad, the other Texas receiver. But Gunnar Helm, man, that kid is a problem. That kid's a problem.
He got lit up like a Christmas tree.
Who?
Sonny Styles.
It was Sonny Styles. Destroyed him.
And it was funny because you look at the sideline and Sark's asking for targeting, and you can play it any which way you want. It wasn't even close to targeting. But
nope.
The one thing that's come out of all this is Ohio State's defense have ratcheted up the physicality.
They did.
You look first drive Tennessee game. They lit up their quarterback.
Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, well, however the hell you say his name.
That's how you say his name.
Cracked his helmet. And you look at, in the biggest, and since we're talking about defense, we'll just get into it with Ohio State.
Do it.
Biggest thing about Ohio State is, say whatever you want about their corners are good. And Burke, yeah, he struggled against Oregon, but ever since the Oregon game, it's been a different defense. And I think why that's a different defense is they've done some things scheme-wise, pretty much like Caleb Downs play the middle of the field. And he's become that eraser. And that was big. It was big in the Tennessee game. It was big in the Oregon game because he just wreaked havoc. And I went through and I was looking at stats today, and it's pretty wild. I mean, we all know Ohio State's number one team in the country, number one defense in the country. As far as I'm concerned, they're the number one team in the country, and
They are.
no one else comes close.
Nope.
But, and not because I'm a homer, but because that's just the stats.
Ball don't lie. The ball doesn't lie, dude.
No. So Ohio State's giving up 12.2 yards a game.
In what?
I mean points per game. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Rushing attempts or rushing, they're giving up 2.7 yards
Per carry.
per carry.
Okay.
Notre Dame 3.7. So we're about a yard difference per game. Ohio State's only giving up 89.9 yards on the ground.
Notre Dame's probably giving up 93, 94.
Oh, let's see. Hold on, I have it. I did it for both teams. Where's it at? Per game? No, Notre Dame's giving 133.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So, and you go down, passing, teams are only completing 59% of their passes against Ohio State.
Okay.
Buckeyes have 10 interceptions. Average pass play, 5.9 yards. That's crazy.
It is.
In a game, they're giving up an average of 161 yards a game passing.
And that's in the playoffs, or that's the whole season?
This is a whole season. These are cumulative stats from the start of the season.
So think about that. Think about that. They played Dylan Gabriel twice, who is the all-time leading passer in college football. Okay. They played Drew Allar, who can throw the football. They played Curtis Rourke, who was a decent quarterback for Indiana. Decent, not great. And
Ewers.
Nico Amialavia, again, however you say his name, but I think that is how you say his name. He was a Heisman favorite going into the year as a quarterback. Now, I know he got hurt, but I mean, he got hurt in frickin' September. I mean, it's now January, February. You know what I mean? Like, think about the prolific quarterbacks that Ohio State played against this year. And they're only giving up 160 something yards a game.
And here's the most this to me is the most telling set of stats that I'm about to read to you. Third down conversions, Ohio State's only given up 34.5%.
For the year.
For the year. This is all for the year. All these are all cumulative stats from per ESPN if you want to look it up. Fourth down, only 41% for the year. Now, to me, this is the most telling of them all. Red zone attempts, teams are 22 for 36 against Ohio State in the red zone. That's 61%.
Okay.
Red zone touchdowns, 15 of 36. That's 42%. That's 42%.
Wow.
For the season.
Wow.
Now, on the other side of this, we talked about this earlier, but the other side of this is now you go to a shift over to Ohio State's offense. They're 49 of 56 in red zone attempts. That's 88%. So you do the math. That's what, 27% higher than the opponents?
Yeah.
And this one is amazing. Ohio State is 43 of 56 red zone touchdowns. That's 77%.
That's a 35% difference
than their opponents.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
wow.
No one, and I get it. Notre Dame's defense, they have a great defense. And we talked about this last show, how, very good defense. Notre Dame, here it is. Notre Dame played Texas A&M, which we would agree that talent pretty much about equal. They lost to Northern Illinois. I watched
that was a close game too.
16-14.
Yeah.
And I was at a complete loss how Notre Dame lost that game.
Yeah.
Then they played the juggernaut of Purdue and Miami of Ohio. Louisville, which, Stanford, terrible. Georgia Tech, kind of surprised by that score. I thought Georgia Tech might have done a little better. They weren't bad.
They had a good year this year.
They had a damn near should have beat Georgia. Played Navy. FSU was terrible. Virginia, I have no clue. Army and USC. Against USC, and everyone was talking about how elite Notre Dame secondary is. Against USC, they gave up 557 total yards offense.
That's insane.
360 yards passing, 197 rushing against USC. And if USC could play any kind of defense,
They have that game.
they have a chance.
Yeah.
USC had 29 first downs in that game.
That's crazy.
Against Louisville, stats aren't quite as good, but Louisville passed for 264, rushed for 131, 395. They had 19 first downs.
And that was a one-score game, the Louisville game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I give Notre Dame credit for where they're at. And by the way, I was wrong when we did the predictions last time because, I mean, quite frankly, did you honestly think Ohio State was going to come out and play the way they've played in the last 3 games?
No, I didn't, because if you remember, I had Ohio State beating Tennessee. I had them beating Oregon, but I had them losing to Texas. I thought Texas was going to be the national champion this year, and I was ready for that, because my biggest thing is I'm a fan of I love the Buckeyes, but I'm a fan of college football.
Well, same
right
here.
And Quinn Ewers, I've always rooted for the kid, just like Joe Burrow. He was a Buckeye. So if anyone was going to win a title game, a guy that suited up for the Buckeyes, I would have. If Ohio State's not going to win it, I'm cool with the guy that suited up for the Buckeyes winning it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Ewers threw, I think, 3 total passes at Ohio State. Ewers never came to Ohio State to.
He came for the money.
He came because of the NIL deals.
Because that's why he switched. He
decommitted from Tom Herman in Texas to go to Ohio State. Herman gets fired. Sark gets hired at Texas, and he goes back. That's cool.
So on the defense side of the ball, I think Ohio State has a clear advantage.
Absolutely.
And I think if Ohio State continues to play downhill, and because I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I don't see Riley Leonard throwing the football against Ohio State.
I don't either. I think Leonard's going to rely a lot on his legs, but let's not forget, Riley Leonard was evaluated for a concussion against Penn State. I think Leonard's a good quarterback. Leonard will not be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
No.
He will get drafted. He'll be a 6th or 7th round pick. He had a great collegiate career, man. He had 35 rushing touchdowns between Duke and Notre Dame, because Riley Leonard started his career at Duke, and then he transfers to Notre Dame for this year, right? Mm-hmm. And Notre Dame does that. You know what I mean? In the Freeman era, they get transfer portal senior or graduate transfer quarterbacks. Sam Hartman, Riley Leonard. And hey, you're seeing that a lot in college ball now. But the biggest thing, I think Notre Dame stands. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like people think it's going to be, like all the pundits on CBS Sports, that kind of thing. Let's dive into something here. Notre Dame can pull an upset. They can. Because they run the football at a very high level. Jeremiah Love, 1,122 yards and 17 touchdowns on the year. Jadarian Price, 733 yards, 7 touchdowns on the year. Riley Leonard, 866 yards and 16 touchdowns on the year. This is all rushing, right? Notre Dame can run the football and keep the hands out of Will Howard in that dynamic offense and gas Ohio State's defense early by keeping them on the field, doing the hurry up, doing that turbo style offense that they can run. They can gas that defense. Do I think it's realistic, though? No. Because like you said, Riley Leonard is not going to throw the ball 35 times tomorrow.
No.
He's not. He's going to throw it 20 to 26.
And to counter that point, Dylan Sampson, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Great running back.
When we discussed it, said he was going to run all over Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone by halfway through the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon, gone.
They lost that kid early in the first.
And In Texas didn't even. I mean, they ran the ball okay. I don't know that they had 100 yards. I don't even think they had 100 yards rushing, but they did enough to negate the running game. So, you know that Notre Dame's going to try to run the football. Well, that's a little bit easier. A defensive coordinator, if you know a team's going to do one way or the other,
it makes it easier to
it makes it easier. So they make them one dimension. You take away the run, you make Riley Leonard throw the football. And I mean, he's an okay passer. We'll get into that here in a second. He's an average quarterback. He's not Will Howard. He's not Ewers. He's not any of these quarterbacks.
He's not Dylan Gabriel.
And Ohio State's and they'll spy him.
Yeah.
They'll run a spy on him. They'll bring Caleb Downs and Latham Ransom.
Lathan Ransom.
Yeah, that guy.
Cody Simon.
Yeah, they'll bring them guys down in the box, and they're going to force Notre Dame to pass football. And that's how they're going to play it. And if you turn them into one-dimensional and forcing them to pass the ball, it's not going to bode well for them.
It's not. It's not. Ohio State, I truly believe they're going to win, but excuse me. I think that their offense and defense don't have very many question marks. There is one thing that is a question mark with Ohio State. Penalties. For them and against them.
Oh, yes.
So, Ohio State, to win this game, needs to play mistake-free football. Against Texas, they committed 9 penalties for 75 yards. And then against Tennessee, they committed 4 penalties for 25 yards. That was in the Cotton Bowl, right? Now, Ohio State's opponents are only being called for 3.6 penalties per game.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of those has been holding. The last time Ohio State got a hold in their favor was on September 21st when they beat Marshall 49-14, and it was in the first quarter. There has not been a holding call in Ohio State's favor since Marshall.
That's unfathomable. I mean, that's
impossible.
That's crazy.
That doesn't make sense. It's hard to win a tightly contested trenches game when they aren't going to throw a flag in your favor. And there is blatant holding in the Texas game. Blatant holding. In fact, the play that JTT hurt his ankle, he was held. That left tackle hooked him and was pulling him, and JTT goes down and tweaks his ankle. Blatant hold. Kelvin Banks is the tackle. That's who I want the Browns to trade down and draft. But if the Buckeyes play mistake-free football, there's nothing else. I'm not worried about Will Howard. I'm not worried about the defense doing their thing, and I'm not concerned with Keyshawn Judkins or Trevion Henderson showing up. I'm concerned that the penalties are what's going to sway the game for Ohio State. Because remember, Ohio State's playing with a patchwork offensive line. Their All-American center, Seth McLaughlin's out with a torn ACL.
Simmons, the All-American tackle.
All-American tackle Josh Simmons is out. Donovan Jackson is now playing out of position.
Yeah, but Donovan Jackson's been playing out of his mind.
He has. He might have a new home.
He hasn't given up a sack in the playoffs.
No.
He's given up 1 sack, and that was in the Penn State game.
He also, that Seivold, I think his name is.
Sirvold.
Yeah. He's a liability. He's a liability.
I think Montgomery's a liability, but Montgomery's. Yes, they have their issues, but they have seemed to have resolved those issues.
Sure. There's only one person. Now, I'm not as concerned about the offensive line. Does it give me pause for a moment? Yes, but I can get over it because Ohio State plays well enough. There's one guy I see as a liability in this game. One guy.
The kicker?
No, I don't think we're going to be kicking very much.
No.
Davison Igabosin. Number 1. The guy that wears number 1, defensive back. I have seen him made one good play all year, and that was against Penn State in the end zone. When he got the interception. and that really wasn't an interception. I'm not going to mince anything. That really wasn't an interception. If you put Davison Igabosin on Jaden Greathouse, the big boy they have at wide receiver, I think there's going to be a problem.
Well, since I dove into these stats, I'm going to go deep into this.
Go, baby, go.
Notre Dame doesn't have a wide receiver that has more than 462 yards receiving.
Okay.
Their whole receiving core. Not a single one of their receivers is over 500 yards.
Okay.
Receiving. Burke has been absolutely locked down since the playoffs. They don't even throw his way.
Yeah.
To your point about Ingrid Wilson, I like him because he's physical and he's not afraid to come up and play the run. Can we get a bunch of, can we have the holding penalties and the interference? No, we can't have that, obviously. But none of Notre Dame's wide receivers, the only one that's truly is scary is that Faison.
He's
their
good.
slot. That kid is good.
He's good.
He's quick. He's fast. Good hands. But you got to have time to throw the ball.
You do.
And I don't think they're going to have time to. I think they're going to have time to throw the ball. The key to me for this game has been the key kind of all year, but especially in the playoffs. How does Will Howard play? I'm not going to go over his stats for the season because more specifically his playoffs, the last 3 games. He's 65 of 88, 74% completion percentage.
Pretty damn good.
6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, one which is
questionable
at best.
It's not really his fault.
Do you know he's only been sacked twice?
He's had
in
a
the playoffs.
clean pocket.
His quarterback rating is 181.8. His QBR for the playoffs 95.4.
That's elite level. That's elite level.
I don't want to hear anyone tell me how Will Howard is just as bad as McCord.
He's not.
He's not. I mean, his game against Oregon the first time they played, he was over 80% completion percentage.
He was.
Does he have the strongest arm in the world? No. Does he make some underthrows? Dude's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he throws the balls into some tight windows. Conversely, you've got Riley Leonard. And we're just going to go with playoff stats real quick. And this shows you the comparison. 53 for 79, 66.5%. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and been sacked 6 times. His quarterback rating is 126.7. His QBR is 72.6 in the playoffs. So
Stark difference in quarterback play.
Exactly.
Stark difference in quarterback play.
And as long as Will Howard continues to play at that level, I don't think it's going to matter what Notre Dame continues to say that we're going to come out, we're not going to change what we do. We're going to do what we do. We're going to play man, and they're the best man defense in the country.
They run man 80% of the time.
Tennessee found out, wasn't a good idea.
Mm-mm.
Oregon found out, wasn't a good idea.
No, especially when Jeremiah Smith did what he did in the first quarter.
Now Texas came out and they bracketed Jeremiah Smith. 3 covers. They bracketed him, played safety high over top. Essentially took him out of the game. But this is where it goes back to Ibuka had a big game.
Carnell Tate had a big game.
Carnell Tate would be a number 1 receiver in any other program in the country.
He would.
G. Scott had a big game. Because Merrick had a couple big catches.
He did.
But the other thing that Ohio State has that, and Notre Dame's running backs are good.
Yeah.
They're not Travion Henderson and they're not Junkins out of the backfield.
Now, to that point, anyone watching the show and looking at stats, Henderson and Junkins do not have the rushing numbers that Price and Love have. But college football schematic differences are so large that Notre Dame is more of a run-heavy team. Like you said, they don't have a receiver over 500 yards. Ohio State had a kid with 1,200 receiving yards. And then Carnell Tate, I think, had north of 600.
Ibuka has almost 1,000.
Ibuka has almost 1,000. Brandon Innes contributed. they had 6-7 guys on Ohio State that really contributed in the receiving corps.
And I think what you're going to see Saturday is I think Ohio State's going to move Smith around. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the slot.
I wouldn't be either.
See him in motion, get him moving around. And if Notre Dame wants to sit here and play man, good luck.
Absolutely.
I mean,
because someone will be open.
Yeah, and it's you got 3 guys that can hurt you at any point, and then that doesn't include the 2 backs out of the backfield who are just as proficient as catching the ball as the wide receivers are.
We saw that with Trevion, right up the heart, baby, 75 yards.
And to that point, I think one of the biggest things for Trevion Henderson this year was the fact that they brought in Judkins, which he welcomed that, and what it did, it took miles off the meter. And I think that Trevion Henderson's the freshest he's been his whole time at Ohio State.
Ever. Because they had Mayan Williams, but Mayan Williams last year was hurt for the majority of the year. So Henderson had to carry that load, because what did they have? They had Dallin Hayden, who great running back, good running back, but he was not a good supplement to Trevion Henderson. No. Like Mayan Williams would have been, like Keyshawn Judkins is. Henderson is lightning, Judkins is thunder.
And they both can block.
1,000%. 1,000%. Judkins, it's so funny because, like, you see Trevion Henderson, he's just a youth pastor. You know what I mean? That kid is God forward. And then Keyshawn Judkins, like Trevion Henderson's posting passages about God and the Bible on his Twitter. Keyshawn Judkins is posting pictures of his grills and like all that, like 2 very different dudes. And they just come together to make such a copacetic backfield. I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow if you see Henderson and Judkins in the backfield at the same time.
Oh, I think you saw it against Texas.
And it worked. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if they employed it more.
I honestly think you're going to see things that Ohio State hasn't run.
You think so?
All year long. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think they'll get back to some things that they haven't ran in a while. I think you'll see some more RPO. And I think good luck to Notre Dame.
Good luck, Notre Dame. Good luck. Good pick. Good team all year. Great teams are going against each other for the national title game. This is what you wanted to see. This is why we made a 12. Not we, but why college football as an entity made the 12-team playoff. Because there was an old guard and there was gatekeeping in the former playoff and when the BCS was there. You had Alabama. You had LSU, you had Ohio State, you had Oregon, you had just like Clemson. You had those guys were always at the forefront. And now opening up to a 12 team, you're going to see teams like Notre Dame, who were a 7 seed, and Ohio State, who were an 8 seed. Ohio State's not going to be an 8 seed ever again. No. So enjoy it while you saw it. But it really reminded me this year of the college basketball March Madness, where the upsets occur. And it was awesome to see. I like seeing that. I like seeing any team can beat any team on any given day. It comes down to who wants it more. And sometimes these lower ranked teams, they don't just want it, they need it. They need it. And Ohio State needed to be humbled by Michigan. They needed to lose that game. Because in my mind, if Ohio State beats Michigan, they go to the conference title game, they're beating Oregon there. Oregon gets put at the 8th seed at that point. Ohio State is the 1 seed at that point. I don't think it's as easy I don't think it's as fulfilling of a road if Ohio State is the 1 seed.
No, and like I said, you'll never see the road that Ohio State's had to travel to get here. You'll never see it again.
Never.
I mean, the gauntlet that they've ran, it's as unprecedented. I mean, obviously we're on unprecedented times with the way that it was set up this year, but you'll never see that again. And then I told you earlier, and I maintain this, and again, not because I love Ohio State, but Ohio State wins the Natty, in my mind, maybe one of the greatest runs of college football history.
I was just going to ask you, because I have my answer. If Ohio State wins tomorrow, are they the greatest team in college football history?
Yes.
I agree.
And yes, and then they say, oh, you lost Oregon, you lost Michigan. Who gives a shit? Look what they did in the playoffs. You dismantled Tennessee.
You dismantled Oregon.
You beat a very good Texas team, and you didn't even play well, and you still beat them by 2 scores. Now, people are going to say this game should be a blowout. No, it's not going to be a blowout.
It's not.
It's going to be along the lines of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ohio State wins 34-17.
Okay. So you have 34-17. I have 21-10. I have 21-10. And the reason it's so low scoring is because Notre Dame runs a ball control offense. They're going to slow the game down. They're going to slow it down. They're going to keep they're going to keep the ball out of the hands of that offense because they know playing man, playing the way that they do on defense, it's going to be very hard to stop Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Thunder and Lightning, G. Scott, and Will Howard. It's going to be tough if they can't control that ball. And I think Marcus Freeman knows that. And I think he's going to employ that running style the whole game. I think Riley Leonard gets his clock cleaned at some point. And I hope, and as I've said, I don't like seeing people get injured. But I think it's a mistake to trot him out there when you're in concussion protocol. Like,
well, he was cleared.
Yeah, I know he was cleared, but I mean, to that point, Tua Tagovailoa gets hit, throws up gang signs, and has a seizure, and then the next week he's out there playing.
Yeah,
because he's cleared.
Well, it'll be one for the ages. I think
it's going to be the best game I think I've ever watched. The most meaningful, the most exciting game I think any of us will ever have the privilege of watching up to this point in our lives. I think if Ohio State wins, it means more to the state of Ohio than when the Cleveland Cavs won the title in 2016.
Yeah.
I really think it is above that in terms of importance to the state of Ohio.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, like I said, they've made it this far, and I can't help but go back to the fact that that switch was flipped.
It was,
and it's turned this team into what they are now. And I think not only what they are now, but what they are going to be going forward. And I think you look at the recruiting, and all of a sudden you can tell, you read every day about the recruiting, about guys who are having second thoughts. Maybe I should have went to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. And
I wouldn't be surprised if spring portal comes around. By the way, this will be the last year of the spring portal.
Yes, it will.
I think you're going to have guys decommit in their original thoughts for Ohio State. I think they're going to go back. You're going to have a couple of those guys. And I think you're going to have, I don't know how many more guys Ohio State's going to go after in the portal. I mean, they already picked up quite a few. They picked that tight end up from Purdue. They picked up some offensive linemen, which they desperately need depth at that. But college football's changed, and I'm so glad they changed the portal. It's only going to be a 10-day window starting next year.
That's all it needs to be.
It's all it never needed to be. I don't understand the thinking behind. And these coaches finally were like, okay, enough of this.
When you have a guy like Nick Saban, who obviously has years left in him, he was a good coach. He wasn't slowing down. He quits because of the portal.
He quits. Yeah, and nil.
Yeah,
But
the portal and now.
to that, the nil era is over in July. According, if anyone wants to go look, Yahoo Sports has a great article about this, and it's out there now. The mainstream media is starting to pick it up, talk about it. In July, the nil's done.
So, do you mean players aren't going to get paid at all?
No. They're still going to get. It's going to go to basically a revenue system.
So, like a salary cap almost.
And it's not going to be a very big one. I believe it's 20 and some change $1 million.
So that's across all sports for the school.
All sports for the school, and these third party, like the collectives,
Done.
and I think that'll go a long way in fixing what we had talked about previously in the last show when I was on, the things that needed to change, because I think they realized, okay, that might have been a mistake the way we did that. So hopefully they go through with it, and I think college football will be better for it. I think the parity is the best it's ever been.
1,000%.
And I don't disagree with the portal. I think the portal is a great thing. But I also do think that you need to, change the way the portal's run. I don't agree with these kids playing 1 year and done and being able to transfer every year. I think that's terrible.
It's awful. Jaden Rashada has transferred 4 times now.
Well, we talked about that.
Yeah.
But college football is a great game, and I definitely would rather watch college football than NFL any day of the week.
I'm in agreement with you.
But with that, go Bucks and
go Bucks, baby. Go Bucks. Nate and I both have the Ohio State Buckeyes winning. It's going to be such a great game. I'm glad that we were able to do this with you guys today. It just wasn't going to happen tomorrow. Big plans for tomorrow. Going to watch the Ohio State game with my buddies Justin and Mark. We have watched every Ohio State game together this year during the playoff, and I've worn my Terrell Pryor jersey over this sweater. So I got to watch this when I get home and get ready for tomorrow. I'm so pumped. You guys tune in tomorrow. Kickoff is at 7:30, and it's on ABC?
I believe so.
ABC or ESPN, maybe both, actually.
Probably ESPN.
So, with that being said, next week, we will be back next Monday on the 27th of January. We will be joined again by Nate, and we'll be joined by one other person, Mark Rude, who was supposed to be a guest a couple weeks ago, but a couple things got messed up with the holidays. We will be talking the reaction to the national championship game, in addition to maybe some things that went on in the NFL playoffs. I have one more announcement I want to make to you guys. This is going to be very big. Nate and I talked. We've been talking a little bit about a few things. Starting next college football season, we will have Nate on the show every Monday, time permitting for him, to talk college football. We're going to have Nate on. He's going to be joining us every Monday, time permitting for him, to come on and talk college football the entirety of the season, so you can get 2 views, 2 different guys that maybe watched a couple different games and can speak to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of fun stuff coming for you guys this year. As football winds down, we're now going to be transitioning a little bit more into basketball. Catchers and pitchers report next month for baseball. Baseball is going to be a huge year for us this year. We've got a lot of golf content coming to you that I'm sure Nate's going to join in on. We're actually going to be filming a golf little event that we're going to be doing, me and a couple guys. So look out for all of that this year. Thank you guys so much for joining us for what might be our longest sports show that we've done. We're coming up on 2 o'clock now. Started at noon, so I'm very excited. We talked for 2 hours without a lull in the conversation. So thank you for joining me, buddy. Thank you. Thank you to Anthony for producing this show, introducing new graphics that are only going to improve next season. We're so excited for the stuff we have coming, guys. If you want to sponsor the show, anyone that owns a business, get in contact with us. We have some templates that we're going to be getting out to people if you do want to sponsor the show. But I do want to thank today's sponsor, Kippy's Cakes. Find her on Facebook. We'd all scream for buttercream. She's got it. Megan makes cupcakes, cakes, cookies, cake pops, anything in between, and can do any event for you. Hit her up. Her prices are fantastic. So with that said, you guys have all made the cut. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week as I'm joined by Nate and Mark Rude for what's going to be a great show.
Hey, one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wait.